Joining us live is MS Now international reporter Inez de la Cortara. Inez, what are you hearing and what's the latest?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, so we are getting word that the clerical body tasked with electing Iran's supreme leader may have more or less reached a majority consensus on who the next leader of Iran should be. So this is according to Iranian media, the MERS news agency. They quote a member of the Assembly of Experts that says that there are still some obstacles that still need to be resolved regarding the process. Iranian media reporting that some of the debate has to do with whether they should meet in person for the official announcement or whether they can skip that step, considering that there are constant attacks on Tehran and specifically on the Assembly of Experts. We, of course, know that President Trump has said he wants to be involved in picking the next leader of Iran. No official announcement has yet been made, but a senior cleric did say, so again telling Iranian media, that the candidate that was picked based on the late supreme leader's advice that Iran's top leader should be hated by the enemy instead of being praised by it. This cleric going on to say even the great Satan, the U.S., has mentioned his name. So lots of questions as to whether he could be referring to Mojtaba Khamenei, the second son of the late supreme leader, who is very much a hardliner, someone who's very much in line with his father's views. He is widely believed to be the top contender here, and if he is chosen, that would signal to the U.S. that Iran is not prepared for regime change and that they will very much double down on their anti-Western, anti-U.S., anti-Israel views. We also have heard, of course, that President Trump said Mojtaba Khamenei would be an unacceptable choice, and the Israelis have repeatedly said they would go after whoever the successor to the Ayatollah is. They doubled down on those threats again today. We got a statement from the IDF on X saying in Farsi that it would also pursue every person who seeks to appoint a successor for the Ayatollah. So the Israelis, continuing to threaten going after whoever the next leader will be. I will say the Israelis and the U.S. have both called for regime change and specifically called for the people of Iran to seize this opportunity, but it's unclear to what extent they may be mobilizing inside Iran.
In Jerusalem, following this breaking story as it continues, Inez de la Cortara, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Also joining us is Molly Jong-Fast, MS Now political analyst, New York Times contributing opinion writer and host of the Fast Politics podcast, and former Democratic Congressman for Pennsylvania, Conor Lamb. Molly, I want to start with you. $1 billion a day for this war, 92,000 jobs lost in February, gas prices spiking $4 cents just overnight. Yeah. The president's struggling.
Yeah.
Where does this go?
And we're on our way to a midterm right now. And you've seen this administration. I mean, what I think is so interesting is they can't give you a reason for the war. Yeah. And they can't give you a message for the midterm. Mm-hmm. And so you're seeing them scrambling and cycling through things. I mean, if you just look at Minnesota, right? The idea was Nick Shirley had found fraud in Minnesota, and this administration was going to run on fraud. Fast forward, 2 Americans dead. Kristi Noem does a hearing this week where she is asked by a Republican senator, Kennedy, about that $220 million in ads, and she can't answer.
Yeah. Congressman Lamb, as a former Marine and former member of the House Veterans Affairs Committee, I wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to this commentary from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth this week, who claimed that reporting on the deaths of our U.S. servicemen and women is designed to make Trump look bad.
This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate. But when a few drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality.
Is that the goal here?
No, I think the press is accurately reporting that you have a child in the position that a grown-up needs to be in Hegseth and so many of the people in this administration. They aren't ready for this. Those troops that were killed should have been in a secured building. That would be an elementary thing for them to have prepared for, but they weren't prepared. And I think the reality is they suspect that more of this is coming, and that's why they didn't lower the flags to half staff and why they haven't really wanted to talk about these deaths, because if they honor these particular troops and make a big deal out of it, they're waking up the country to, what may be happening as a result of their own incompetence.
You know, Molly, this is 26 seconds. It's kind of hard to hear, but I want to show this, the president being asked yesterday whether he would whether he'll have to go back to Dover Air Force Base for more dignified transfers. Watch this. I mean, the thing about that strikes me is it's a part of war, isn't it? And then he asks, who are you with?
Yeah.
As if that makes any difference. This is probably one of the most solemn things a president has to do as commander-in-chief. And he just seems to be so blasé about the loss of life, whether it's service members or Americans being concerned that they could be targeted here at home as a result of what's happening in the war with Iran.
Well, remember, this is the administration that has replaced the Pentagon press corps, right? So what they care about is not what happens, but how you read what happens. And so I think that this is a very, I think that this is a problematic moment for him anyway, because remember, he said he was going to run against, he was going to stop all foreign wars. And you remember, the reporting says Tucker Carlson has talked to him a couple of times and is not pleased. And remember, there's a big section of the Trump MAGA base that supported him because he wasn't a neocon, because he was against this very thing. So I think they think that propaganda can prop them up, but I don't think it can do what they need.
And it's not working because we have a poll from NBC News, Republican approval for Iran strikes. MAGA-aligned Republicans, 90% approve, but non-MAGA-aligned Republicans, 54% approve. Now, still, that's a majority, but it's way less at that 54% than he's used to seeing.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't win in this country without indies. So I don't, and they do not like this. And also, just fundamentally, you still have to sell a war. Even an unpopular war, presidents go out and try to sell it to the American people. With this, there's been none of that. And I just don't think that works over the long term.
It doesn't appear that they feel like they have to sell it to Congress or to the American people. Congressman, one of the things that I keep thinking about is kind of the cost of the chaos that we're seeing. And it's a through line through this administration over the last year plus. There's the fallen soldiers, their families, the families at the gas pump, the workers who lost their jobs, immigrant families living in fear. All of those things are connected. So as you are going to be out and trying to explain to the American people how this administration can be held accountable, right? How do Democrats make a case and tie all these things together in a way that actually breaks through?
Well, in a way, we have the simplest argument available to us that we've ever had, which is that almost all the damage is self-inflicted. So even before you get to this war, the extra $1,000 that everybody had to spend last year because of the tariffs, all we need to do is repeal the tariffs. The 100,000 people in Pennsylvania that have already given up their health care, all you have to do to get that back to them is undo the changes that Trump made to the subsidies. And of course, the billions of dollars every day that this war is costing us, the huge increase at the pump that people already have, all you have to do is get out of this war. All you have to do is put it back in Congress where it should have been originally, but people in Congress are up for election this year, so they didn't want to vote on it, the people in Trump's party. I mean, so if we can keep things simple for once as Democrats, I think we'll do well, but the damage runs a lot deeper than just these midterm elections. I think you guys know that.
Congressman, let me stick with you because as a former member of Congress, but also a member of the Marine Reserves and a former member of the Marines in active duty, I'm going to put up this what the president said on Truth Social yesterday about the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, our once great ally, maybe the greatest of them all, is finally giving serious thought to sending 2 aircraft carriers to the Middle East. That's okay, Prime Minister Starmer. We don't need them any longer, but we will remember we don't need people that join wars after we've already won. The United Kingdom is our closest ally, one. Two, I remember a time when the United States rarely undertook actions like this without allies, not just the Brits, but the NATO alliance, other people. We're going it alone. Please explain to the American people why that social media post by the president, they should find it alarming.
Well, I mean, if you just want to look at it in the simplest terms, he's going to make everything more expensive and harder for us if we're going it alone, right? He's also just making us weaker. Anybody who's ever been in a fist fight knows that you're in a better position if you have a few friends than if you're completely by yourself, because you never know what could happen. And after 9/11, which, you know, people didn't expect, all of a sudden we were at two wars. And who was right there alongside us? The British, the Canadians, you know, so many of our NATO allies, and they bore a huge amount of the burden all those years. They gave up the lives of some of their own soldiers. And that's idiotic for us to walk away from that.
Mm-hmm. I'm also thinking of the Danes, who gave a lot, helping the United States. Former Congressman Conor Lamb, Molly Jong-Fast, thank you both very much for coming to The Weekend.